Hello everyone and welcome to this tutorial on Twitter Bootstrap. If you've never used Twitter Bootstrap before, it's basically a free framework for you to download that Twitter has built and worked hard building that you can use to build really great looking mobile friendly and responsive websites. It provides you with a whole framework of JavaScript files and CSS files and other great features that you can download and get support for at their website, getbootstrap.com. And when you go there, you will see you're greeted by a way to download it. And so you're just going to click on that center button and you will download Bootstrap right from there. And when you do that, you're going to also be brought to another page that lets you download the files, and it will download it into a zip file. You don't want any of those other ones. And then just go ahead and click Save File, and that is where you're going to find it. It'll go in your Downloads folder. And just to kind of get it out of the way, I'm going to take it out of my Downloads folder and put it right on my desktop so I can find it pretty easily. When I'm done with that, it's going to give you a zip file, as you can see here, and I'm just going to go ahead and double click it, and it will unzip it, and it turned it into a folder. And so I'm going to rename that folder. If I was doing a website on wakeboarding, I'm just going to call it that, one word, lowercase, and now I can go into it and I can look at the files that Twitter Bootstrap has given me. So in the CSS folder, I see some CSS files. Obviously, in this fonts folder, it's going to allow me later to choose different fonts or different icons that I can choose, and those are going to be located here. And then JavaScript files are going to be located here. So just to get started with Twitter Bootstrap, as long as you download the framework, this is basically what they give you, these three folders, you can start creating and building. It's kind of a create your own adventure kind of thing, where they've basically given you all the tools you need. You just have to call them up and tell the browser what to do with them. So to start out, I'm going to go ahead and just start out a typical website and start out with this doc type HTML, and then I'm going to go ahead and close that. Then I'm going to go ahead and open up my head, give it a title, and I'm going to say wakeboarding home. It's my home page. Close that title. Then I'll close the head, and I'll open up the body here and then close it. So this is just still a very basic website. Same kind of framework you might have seen in other sites. I'm going to go ahead and attach my style sheet, and I'm going to use the code link href equals, and I'm going to go into the folder CSS, and I'm going to be linking to the bootstrap.css style sheet, and create the relationship style sheet, and the media equals screen. Okay, so that's going to call up the style sheet, and from there I'm going to add this div class equals container, and then I'm going to go ahead and close it there because everything I do in this site is going to be within this container div. I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I'm going to want to make sure that I save it on my desktop in this folder called wakeboarding, and I'm going to call it index.html. You'll notice that this file is amongst all these other folders, so don't save it in a folder here in like your JavaScript, CSS, or fonts folder. Make sure you save it in the folder that you downloaded to download Twitter Bootstrap, which I renamed wakeboarding, and put it on my desktop. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And I'm going to start it out with an H1 and say hello world. And go ahead and close that. Save it, and now I'm going to test it out by just double clicking it, and it worked. And the reason I know it worked is because this is in Helvetica font, and it's responding to the size of the browser by kind of jumping around like that. So that is a good indication that it's actually working. So beyond that, I'm going to go ahead and create some more code here. I'm going to actually start creating a navigation. And in Twitter Bootstrap, the way that it calls up the navigation is in a UL, an unordered list. And so I'm going to go ahead and create a list item and I'm going to say href equals index, and I want this to be linking to my index page, which is my home page, and then I'm going to go ahead and close that list item. I'm going to create a few more. Let's say this site will have 4 pages. Oops, not just index, but it's got to be index.html. This one's going to be about.html. I'm going to go ahead and just imagine different pages you might have on this website, about, and then a gallery page. And then maybe a tips page if you're just getting started with wakeboarding. Give you some tips there. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and save it. Go ahead and close my UL here. And right now it's not really going to look like much, it's just going to look like a list. So I want to add what Twitter Bootstrap has in the CSS, a class called class equals nav. And what that's going to do is it's going to say don't just create a list, but make it a navigation list. I'm going to go ahead and refresh it, and now it has become a navigation. But that'd be great if my site was as for a mobile site, that would be just fine. But for the site that I'm using right now, I do want these to kind of be inline, and there's a couple different options that Twitter gives you to make that inline. The first would be nav pills, and that is a way to allow Twitter to kind of treat these as little buttons. Okay, your navigation as buttons. You could also do nav tabs, and what that would do is it would make kind of buttons, but with this line here to kind of be more like a tab. And so that doesn't really look like tabs right now, but I could also add a class to my first list item, and of course for each page you'd have to change this to the different list item. I'm going to do a class equals active on this list item, and what that's going to do is it's going to allow that first tab to be kind of the active navigation button, and so it won't be clickable. These other ones will be. So you can just choose which one you want to use. If I were going to use pills with that active class, you can see that it's selected, so the user knows which page that they're on. So you can decide which pages you want to create on this. And then the third thing to make a very basic page with Twitter Bootstrap is to create a layout. And the great thing about Twitter Bootstrap here is that it allows you lots of different options and lots of different layouts that you might want to create. And so it's divided up into basically 12 different columns. If you want to imagine the web page being divided up into 12 different imaginary columns. And so to choose a layout, you have to pick a layout that adds up and lines up with those 12 columns. And so I'm going to go ahead and code it here with div class equals row. And so that's going to create a new kind of layout for me. Anytime you do a new layout with Twitter Bootstrap, you're going to want to create this row. And it works kind of like a table if you want to think about a row and different data that's in that table. And so now is where I get to decide the real layout for my site. I'm going to go ahead and type in and add a tab here so I can keep my line straight. Div class equals, let's go ahead and make an 8-column main area, and that's col md8. And I'm just going to go ahead and put a paragraph here that says this is where my main section of content will be. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close that, and then below it I'm going to do a div class equals col medium 4. And what that's going to do is act as a sidebar. This is my sidebar. Okay, and so I'll go ahead and delete this line of code, save it, and you can kind of see, even though it doesn't look the best right now, is that this is an imaginary, if you imagine 8 of those columns, and then here on the sidebar about 4 of those columns. So you can kind of see that this row contains an 8-column and a 4-column, which both obviously add up to 12. So you could also do a 9 and a 3. And what that would do is it would make this main section a little bit wider and the sidebar a little bit shorter. You'll see that when I refresh, that's what happens. It's kind of hard to see because there's not a whole lot of content on there yet. I'm going to recommend that you use an 8-column and a 4-column. And then you'll just go ahead and start filling this up with some regular text. And so I'm going to do a few... Oh, I never closed that paragraph, and that might have messed some things up. And so this is where you can really kind of be creative. Just note that just kind of keep these divs aligned in a way that you can come back to them. Just because you see how I've already broken it up and it's kind of getting hard to tell where my div column 8 opens and closes and my div column 4 opens and closes. But they're all within this row div. Okay, so now I can start to code some more on H1 that says welcome to my site. Close that H1, and then over here I can say sidebar, and then this is my sidebar. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, refresh, and now it's starting to look a little bit more like a site with columns in it. So this is just a very basic website, and this is a great place to start. And stay tuned for other Bootstrap tutorials.